All right, so we got a QC rejection from Autillion when we were making these HVCB deliverables. Their QC report says that the deliverable we sent to them the biggest problem was the audio. And this was not our mistake. They gave us the wrong spec. But you can see by the QC report that the audio levels and the deliverables we sent were too hot. You can see what they're expecting is between minus 22 and minus 26 LUFS. LUFS also can be referred to as LKFS, but that's a loudness metering standard. But our audio level average volume was minus 20, which is higher, which is louder than minus 22, which is the top end of the range. And the true peaks, the maximum peak, also exceeded minus 6, which is their max peak spec. Yeah, and we can actually see this by opening up the original master and then opening up the audio track mixer and then applying to the master mix channel, go to special and go to loudness meter. There's also, let's do loudness radar. Loudness radar actually does work, although you should probably stop using it because it only works on Intel Macs. I guess they couldn't get the licenses, or maybe TC Electronic doesn't make a Apple Silicon version of this, so this loudness radar doesn't work natively in Premiere on Apple Silicon machines, but it will show you what's going on. Let's change this peak indicator to minus 6. Change target loudness to, let's go 24, since that's the middle of the range that they want to see. Change the units to LUFS. Change that to 1773. So their specs say they want between minus 22 and minus 26. Okay, so let's see what happens when we play with the audio.
Maui is still the beautiful destination that it's always been. Come with an open heart. If you go a little bit below the surface, it's the culture and the people that make the island.
Okay, actually one another setting I should have set there was the radar speed should be 1 minute, just so we can get a bigger swath of the radar here, since this is only 15. But you can see what it said the average loudness of the program was minus 19. And that would be higher than their specs. I guess you got to wrap your head around the scale, because at minus 22 is actually hotter than minus 26, because it uses 0 as the reference. So that's not within their specs, clearly. Okay, so that said, obviously loudness radar is how you used to do it, but what you should be using is now the loudness meter, which was introduced in a recent version of Premiere. And this works on Apple Silicon machines as well. But I actually think this is more useful. The other one, radar is good for visualizing the audio, but this gives you a more obvious readout of what's actually going on here. So what I'll do is I'll go to settings here, set the metering scale, and make sure the unit is LUFS, and then change maximum true peak to minus 6. And that you can probably leave where it is. And then we'll go back to level. So now what we do, play that again.
Maui is still the beautiful destination that it's always been.
So you can see in real time the numbers that are happening here.
It's the culture and the people that make the island.
So in the end, integrated is the average for the whole shebang when you play it. The short term gives you a 3-second kind of when you're watching it. Let's reset that. When you're watching it, you'll see kind of a 3-second before and 3-second. It samples 3 seconds of wherever the current playhead is, just so you can see that acts more like a real-time VU meter in a way.
Maui is still the beautiful destination that it's always been. Come with an open heart if you go a little bit below the surface.
So that'll immediately tell you whether things are hot or whatever, and this gives you the average over time. And every time you play it, you're going to want to hit reset. So obviously this doesn't give you a radar view, but you still need to reset because it's giving you an average of the playback.
Maui is still the beautiful destination that it's always been. Come with an open heart. If you go a little bit below the surface, it's the culture and the people that make the island.
Okay, so over that playback time, our average loudness is minus 19.7, which is, again, hotter than they want. And then the peak was also hot, minus 2.9. And you can see that corresponds to their QC report there. It's not perfect, but close. It's pretty close. They want to see minus 6. Okay, so this is why the loudness meter is really helpful for gauging whether you're in spec or not. I will say that their settings are a little non-standard. Everything I've read is for web and stuff. They want it to be hotter, but whatever. Okay, so now that we've determined that yes, this audio mix is too hot, what we need to do is take the master, and we want to remaster the audio mix so it's not so hot. Obviously, you can go back to the original audio editor and say, "Can you please give me a new mix with this setting?" That probably is the best way to do it. But in a pinch, the way you can do it is through Media Encoder, and you're basically going to remaster your original ProRes master. You're just going to you're going to normalize the audio for the ProRes file. So just make sure that you're passing through the original video codec that you're using. Make sure all this is set, match source, and obviously set that to 709 color space, 16-bit, all that stuff. Okay, and then where you normalize the audio is in the effects tab, and you scroll all the way down here, and you enable loudness normalization. So now I set the standard to ITU 1770-3, and then I dial in the target loudness based on what they're expecting, what they want. So between minus 22 and minus 26 would be minus 24. So I'll use that as the target loudness. And then also for the max true peak level, we want to put minus 6 dB TP, I guess decibels total peak, I guess, true peak. You can also enable this write loudness report, and I'll write a sidecar XML file that will give you metadata about the loudness levels on the export. I don't really think you need to do this for what we're doing here, but I guess if you want to tweak it, you could. So you just re-export this, and what that will do is it'll just spit the video out, but it'll normalize the audio. So now when we bring that normalized version in, and let's do the audio or loudness meter, double click on that, change the settings. You always have to, I can't figure out, I don't think you can save custom settings here. I don't know why, but so you always have to go back here and make sure that this is set to the meter. So this is just metering, right? This just sets the scale of and the units of how it measures. So this doesn't actually change the loudness or anything. It just adjusts how it reports the audio levels up here. All right, so hit play again.
Maui is still the beautiful destination that it's always been. Come with an open heart. If you go a little bit below the surface, it's the culture and the people that make the island.
Okay, so now you can see that our average it's exactly minus 24. So that's within the middle range of their loudness levels that they want to hear. And their peak, true peak, was minus 7.2. So, although numerically that seems like it's more, but it's not, because if you look, obviously the digital audio levels are based on a negative level. So if you look at here, this is where you see the peak, dBTP. 6 would be here, 12 is here, so 7 is right around here. So our true peaks are within their limits. So basically all you need to do is, specifically for Artilian, but this is just a general procedure as to how to deal with specific loudness levels. They seem like they're really anal about this. If you need to get the audio in spec, this is how you monitor it. And again, you see a lot of tutorials that'll tell you to use the loudness radar, which again, it does work if you're on an Intel Mac, and if you run Premiere on an Apple Silicon Mac. If you run it in Rosetta mode, you can also use that. But And again, why this is kind of neat to visualize. I don't really think, it's not a big loss that that's not available. I think the loudness meter is actually more simple to deal with. You can see what's happening in real time. So that's how you deal with the loudness level QC rejection in Premiere and Adobe Media Encoder.